Welcome, and yes, sir, I'm calling it right now. Varlamore is going to be the #1 most picked region, and it's not just because it's new. Let me show you why. We have got shops. Shops and shops and shops. Oh my, what is this subscribe button doing here? Golly, get that out of here. All right, shops. So, wow, okay. Varlamore is like a fairly large area, but it's not the biggest. So for it not being like the largest region, it has an absolute ton of shops available. You're gonna pick up a crafting shop, as well as kind of like a cooking food shop, and kind of low level like armor weapon shops. All of that's gonna be in the main city. Please don't make me pronounce these names. I'm gonna butcher them all right? As you move kind of out of the city, you're getting a farming shop, you're getting, again, like, you can pick up a ruined mace, kind of like early weapon. I do think Varlamore is gonna be one of those regions that's picked first. It is really strong, and it has a lot of early game options, especially when you look at things like the shops. So there is also a gem shop. You can get uncut sapphires. As I've said in a couple of the other videos, it's really, really powerful to be able to get uncut gems, especially early on as a training method. So even if there's not some sort of shop relic, this is still going to be really good crafting training. Of course, Varlamore is also home to the Hunters Guild, so you're going to get access to a couple of different hunter shops. Both of these you are going to be getting some use out of, because with there being the Hunter Guild, you get a lot of hunter options, you get hunter rumors, things like that. So you're going to need all the different tools. Plus, you're going to need the whatever hunter fabric to make some armor early game, but we'll talk a little bit more about that once we get onto the gear. Once you get into the Dwarven City, you are also going to be getting access to a ruin pickaxe shop and a pretty decent ruin shop as well. Get some law ruins, get some nature ruins, and then kind of out in the savannah area, you got like a fishing shop. You've also got a stonemason, which this is a big blow to Fremnik, all right? Fremnik used to be the only stonemason because it was in the Dwarven City, but now with Varlamore, you get access to another one. So if you want to get upgrades in your house, you're either going to pick Varlamore or Fremnik, and I think Varlamore is looking pretty good. Let's continue on, so maybe I can convince you. Now for this, get that out of here. I'm sorry about that. Okay, skilling options. One of the biggest pulls of the region is going to be Hunter, and while Hunter isn't exactly that bad of a skill to train in leagues, you do get access to some more like interesting things by going through hunter rumors. So not only is it better hunter XP, you're getting access to things like the butterfly jars that heal like prayer, for example. You're also getting access to some of the weird new like meats and whatnot. So they actually have like some best in slot healing capabilities down here with like the moonlight meat. I think it heals like 24 or 26. It just heals it in like half when you eat it, half like 10 seconds later. So if you're not doing something where you need to get all of that healing all at once, which during leagues you're going to be so powerful anyway, that'll probably be almost any area that you're in, then these are going to be really good. Plus you're also picking up Teku salamanders, which, you know, salamanders aren't necessarily the best weapon, but that is, I think, going to be a pretty fun weapon, especially because, you know, you're in leagues and you're going to have all these different power-ups. So I think that'll be a fun thing to play around with. Now, anyone who played the last league probably remembers Trickster as a relic, which let you just kind of like AFK pickpocket. Well, in Varlamore, pickpocketing citizens is kind of like Trickster light, so you don't even need that relic in order to get that benefit. So this is going to be a really good thieving activity, especially because they've already said we're not getting the exact same relic, so we may not see something like Trickster again. So if you want kind of like pretty chill thieving, Varlamore is a good way to go. You are picking up the sort of like standard farming allotment patches. So, you know, it'll be 2 allotment patches, a herb patch, a flower patch. So get a little bit of training there. There are also some high level trees kind of littered around the area. So you get like yew trees, magic trees, access to those. There's the sort of like mid-level agility course as well. This does give you access to amylase crystals, so you are going to be getting access to those anyway through Brimhaven. That's something that they've added to the reward shop there, but this is again something that you're probably going to have some tasks for. This course is a little bit more AFK than some of the other agility options that you're going to have out there, so just like something a little bit different if you end up wanting to do that. There is also the recent addition of Mastering Mixology, and while I know not a lot of people like this, it is better XP per herb, even though it tends to be a little slower than making potions. Plus you get access to all of the rewards that encompasses. So So pretty solid herblore option actually with Varlamore, and that's also going to give you access to the 2 new potions as well, being the Aggression Potion as well as the Prayer Renewal Potion. So I think that's going to be a fun thing to play around with, something that's definitely interesting depending on the different relics that are available to you. And then the last activities that I want to call out here, and they kind of go together because they're both working on the like Ralos Sun altar thing. You've got the bone shards that you can use for prayer. You are going to be picking these up, just kind of doing random activities throughout Varlamore. So while I don't necessarily think this is going to be your primary way of getting to 99 prayer, this is probably going to be a decent way of getting yourself up to like 70 or 80. Plus, since you're going to have access to a stonemason, you're going to be able to build a gilded altar for later. So I think with Varlamore, you've got some good options doing this as just kind of like filling your time. And then you've got a gilded altar in your POH if you want to really lean in, kind of speed up that prayer training using things like Dragon Bones or whatever you happen to have. There are also these like Sunfire runes. And again, this is one of those things where just as you're doing stuff in Varlamore, you're going to build up the supplies for both of these. So I think this is going to be kind of an interesting way to get some rune crafting training in. And it is probably good enough to carry you through until you get to some of the later ruins like nature ruins or something like that in the starting areas. So I think it's going to be pretty powerful. Now for the mobs and activities, this is where Varlamore feels a little bit lacking, and I think this is where it's gonna catch a little bit of criticism. I do still think what we're already getting with Varlamore, even up to this point, probably still worth a pickup. But in terms of mobs and activities, you're getting access to brutal blue dragons. So nothing too crazy, but they do give you a better chance at the visage drop. So if you need that, you have that available to you. You've got a couple of creatures here to drop kind of like some mid-game double hitting weapons. So like the double hitting slash, double hitting crush weapons. And because you're already going to be doing things in Varlamore, there's this like the Moon's chest. It's essentially upgraded crystal chest, if you will. It has its own type of key. So you get these key halves as you're doing activities in Varlamore. One half comes from killing NPCs, one half comes from skilling. So you will be building that up. It's got some pretty decent supply drops in there. It's better than a crystal chest, that's for sure. It's probably closer to on par with something like the Elven crystal chest, though truthfully I actually think this one's a little bit better than even that one. So it does have a big onyx bolt drop if you're looking for cash. That can be kind of like a fun way to kind of pick up some extra GP if you're in need of it. There is also this moon mask here. I kind of expect that there's going to be some sort of task associated to getting this thing. It's like the rarest drop out of the chest, so something to keep an eye on. Now on to the bosses. This is where I think Varlamore starts to get really interesting, because while it doesn't necessarily have the most bosses in an area, it has a pretty wide spread of stuff. So you've got things like this sort of low level Slayer boss, like a Moxliotl, something like that. You're also going to be picking up what people call the noob barrows, you know, the different moons bosses, and they each have their own armor set that have some interesting effects. I think the Blood Moon in particular could be really good in the league depending on what some of those relics are. So this one, I think people are going to be spending a lot of time here. One downside to these bosses is they have certain mechanics to sort of like draw out the fight. You know, every like 6 hits or whatever it is, they activate one of their specials and you have to go through that. So I do think it'll be a tad slow to farm by comparison, but I personally don't think it'll be that bad, especially because with some of the league boosts, you may be able to just blow through their health bar anyway, and then it won't really be a big deal, right? Because you'll just end up skipping a lot of those mechanics. Of course, you do have access to Sir Hugh, Huacotl? I don't know, man. Gonna give you access to the Toma Earth, the Dragon Hunter Wand, as well as the Hide. That's gonna be some good armor drops. It's kind of, the supply drops from this boss aren't the best. They're kind of like lower level, you know, mid-game sort of supplies, so nothing too crazy there. And then as you get towards the later game, you've got things like Bar Dorvis, which has moved to Varlamore. You'll notice it wasn't in Kourend, and that's because he's here. So you're gonna get access to all the Desert Treasure 2 stuff, like the Soul Reaper Axe, the Virtus Robes, the piece for the Ultor ring as well. And then you've got the Colosseum. Mr. Soul Herdot himself, hopefully I'm saying that right. You know, he drops the best in slot range cape, the Echo Boot Crystal, probably not that big of a deal. The Prayer Armor, probably not that big of a deal. And then kind of an interesting range weapon. I do wonder how good this is going to be throughout the league. And I think that's one of the strengths of Varlamore, and this maybe leans a little bit on the fact that it's new. You're going to be getting a lot of like really interesting new stuff to play around with. Stuff that people haven't gotten to experience with the different relic buffs or anything like that. So people don't know how this is all going to interact. So we'll have to see. I find that really interesting myself. I think that's one of the big reasons why Varlamore is going to end up being a top pick, but we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go through the gear tab. Now, in terms of the Echo Boss, I really don't think any of these fit that well besides the Amoxhliotl. Doesn't really have a crazy drop going for it. It's not like a crazy boss either. So I really think this is where the Echo Boss is going to be. In terms of what it's going to drop, that part I'm a little bit unsure of. There's already so much stuff available in Varlamore that it's hard for me to say that Varlamore is particularly strong in any one combat. So I don't know. What do you guys think is going to come through from this? I'm 99.9% sure that this is going to be the Echo Boss. So whatever that's worth. Probably nothing. I'm not the dev. All right. Anyway, let's see what the gear looks like. Oh my God, no, it's Soul Herdot. No, he's gonna end me, guys. You have to click subscribe. You have to save me. Please. Oh yeah, no. Oh my God. Oh, wow. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. I've not beat him in the game, so that was pretty rough. I'm sorry, man. Okay, I'm trying to make it fun. All right, YouTube algorithm or something. I don't know. Okay. Melee gear. Varlamore is one of those regions where you don't necessarily get the best endgame stuff from here, but it supports you so well through the early and the mid game, and there's that unknown of how the different armor sets are going to interact with the relics that are going to come out this year. So like you get this mixed hide stuff early, it does give you a strength bonus, so it's actually going to be a pretty decent early melee armor for you. You got some of those double hitting weapons as well. The drop rates on those are going to be boosted, so you're able to pick those up, and they're each like tier 50 or tier 55, so they're going to be decent weapons. They're going to function really well in the Varlamore content. So I think early game in melee, this is really going to set you up pretty well. As you move into like the mid and the late game for Varlamore, you're really looking at the Blood Moon set, the double hitting Guacamalotls or whatever the heck. I'm gonna get roasted for that one. Holy cow. You also do get access to the Soul Reaper axe, and I think the thing with the Blood Moon armor, it actually does give a good strength bonus. It's equivalent to Bando's, so while it's not necessarily on the same level as Torva, it's gonna be pretty close. And if you don't end up going Asgarnia and wanting to farm Nex or God Wars, so I know a lot of people pick Asgarnia in like past leagues, so it's not the most fun to just continue to pick it up. These do actually fill those slots like pretty well, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Blood Moon armor making it all the way into the late game for a lot of folks, especially if the passive, which lets the dual whatevers hit faster, if that stacks with some of the relics in the game, I could see this one being a really fun one even into the late game. But Soul Reaper axe, if you want to use that. You've got the Teku Salamander. Again, I think that one's more of just kind of like a for fun thing. It is a tri-bred weapon, so what the heck, pick one of these things up, get yourself some Irrit Tar, have a good time. And once you get through the Colosseum, eventually you'll pick yourself up the best in slot prayer armor. You can really use this for anything. It's not like melee specific, but it is giving you another option if you end up wanting to do some sort of like prayer build or something like that. I did want to keep some of the starter area gear down here just as kind of like a reference point, because you're able to really get a lot of strength bonus, I think, with the Blood Moon armor, as well as going through and getting like a fire cape. You'll get a fury. I've got the spiked fan braces on here. I really want to be good, but you could also pick up a regen bracelet. It's going to be better end game anyway. So in terms of the combinations, if you do want to make the Echo Boots, and again, I say this a lot with these combinations, I don't think this is worth it as a combo personally, but if you're like really set on getting those Echo Boots, then you'll have to pick up Asgarnia so that you can get Bando's boots, Mauritania so that you can turn those into the Gargoyle boots, and then you get the Echo Crystal from the Colosseum and you can make the Echo Boots finally. So not exactly an easy one to put together in leagues. I don't know, man. I mean, Asgarnia and Mauritania are a really good melee combo, so I could see people picking that up anyway and just wanting to try Varlamore. So there may be a fair few of you who get access to the Echo Boots, but definitely don't go out of your way just to pick these up. I don't think that'll be worth it. And then if you want to make the Ultor ring, you have to pick up the Fremnik region. That way you can get yourself the Berserker ring from the Dagonoth Kings, and then you can make this best in slot strength ring. So now onto the range armor. And again, this is where Varlamore, I mean, really, it offers just so much stuff. In the early game, you get the mixed hide set. You can start getting access to things like the sunlight crossbow, which is really good. Honestly, you can just use that into the late game, probably. You know, you get like the upgraded moonlight antler bolts or whatever. Like there's some good stuff. You've got the early setup, it's going to be really strong. You've got the moon's armor. Again, this is going to be kind of like an interesting set because it has like a type of burn effect on it. So we'll have to see what the relics look like. I don't necessarily foresee this one having the same sort of late game staying power as something like the blood moon armor, but again, it is an option there for you. So I could definitely see this getting some use, especially in like the mid game for leagues. And then as you get into the late game, you're getting the Huey hide. It is a little bit better than Blessed Dragon hide, so you don't have to worry about doing clues to get that set up. You just go through Huey, get his armor set up, doing pretty well. And again, I mean, you do have some decent range options for weapons. Teku Salamander, people are sleeping on it. I'm telling you, it's going to be a fun time. You've got the whatever like Raulos blade thing, typically used as a special weapon, but it may actually end up working quite well as a primary weapon too, depending on some of the relics. And that moonlight crossbow, dude, I'm telling you, like if you haven't used that in the main game, it is a really strong weapon for it being such like a low level weapon. It's actually kind of crazy. I think it's best in slot in a number of places. So I would not even hate if this was like the only ranged weapon that I had personally. Plus, on top of all of this stuff, you are getting the best in slot range cape, and depending a little bit on what it looks like, you know, you can get away with just having this best in slot cape. It's totally fine. It just doesn't have the ammo saving capacity. You can combine it with things, so like depending on the areas that you have, you may have access to an accumulator, so you might be able to get the ammo saving effect with that. You could end up taking like maybe Fremnik, and then you get the assembler from Vorkath. You can use that, you can combine it together, get that ammo saving effect. But again, that one, you don't even really need it. Like I don't think it's gonna be that big of a deal. I think you're gonna get more use out of the fact of just like having the best in slot range cape. So anyway, for the last combat style, you get the Blue Moon outfit, kind of early mid game for your mage. It does give some mage percent bonus, so it is actually pretty decent. Has again kind of like an interesting effect where you can like melee after you cast a spell sometimes. This is another one of those armor sets where I don't think it's going to be that useful in the late game. We'll have to see though if there's some sort of like hybrid or tribrid relic mastery whatever, then maybe this will get a little more use out of it. You also of course have the Teku Salamander. I am going to push this thing because I love the salamander weapons. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And then as you look towards the late game, you've got yourself access to the Virtus robes through Vardorvis. You've got the Dragon Hunter wand. Yeah, the Dragon Hunter effect, probably not that good, but you don't actually need the Dragon Hunter effect for it to be a good wand. It does still give you magic percent, so like you can still use it even if you're not using it on dragons. And then you're also getting access to the Tome of Earth, so you might be able to get some use out of that with wave spells. If you do end up taking Fremnik, you'll get access to the Magus Ring, you know, some of the upgraded like desert pieces if you combine that with the desert. And the other thing that I don't have listed out here being the Wrath Ruins, so if you wanted to go for like, you know, crazy standard spellbook damage type of thing, it actually isn't the worst combo to take Fremnik, because then you're going to get access to Wrath Ruins, be able to do those surge spells, can use that Tome of Earth. A lot of the dragons are weak to earth spells, so I mean, I think you could get some pretty good combos out of that. And I just want to point out, for all of the areas that are in the game, there are only a handful that give you such well-rounded gear. Like, even though it's not necessarily the best of the best coming from Varlamore, it's going to make sure that you are pretty well set up in every combat style. And I think this is one of the major selling points for Varlamore, because not only do you have some more interesting skilling activities, you also are really going to make sure that like you at least have pretty decent gear in all of your combat styles. And it is so easy in leagues to really like hone in on one specific style, and then you're just kind of out of luck. So this is one of the reasons that I really like Varlamore, because it's giving you access to so much stuff in the same way as something like Mauritania or Asgarnia. All three of those regions are just so well-rounded. It just makes sure that you've got access to kind of a little bit of everything. Now, in terms of the task breakdown, of course, since it's a new area, we don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but given the types of activities that are there, I think big task-wise, we can expect something like Colosseum waves, so like getting to wave 4, wave 8, getting the final wave, whatever, right? I think we're also going to see something like Colosseum completion KC, somewhere between like, you might have 1, 5, 10, something like that. I think it'll be very similar to what we've seen with the Inferno tasks. Baby Huey, he's going to get himself a KC task, surely. For this type of boss, I would expect something around 300. Bardorvis, it's moved down here. We did get some tasks for him last year, so probably 300 KC. All of the CAs for all of these different bosses, we'll also probably see something like Huey Coddle kill time, so kill it in like 2-3 minutes, whatever, as a sort of like speed task. I think we're also likely to see some of the mixology rewards coming in, so like unlocking the alchemist outfit, the alchemist amulet, things like that. Probably see some tasks around like the Coliseum worm completion time, you know, complete the low level course in a minute, complete the high level course in a minute, something like that. Maybe even hitting a certain lap count. Do have quite a lot of equipment in the area as well, so I would expect to see, you know, anything from the Coliseum, so like the Quiver, the Sunfire, Fanatic armor, any of the Moon's armor sets like Blood Moon, the Blue Moon, whatever. Huicoddle Hide, the Teku Salamander, anything like that. And kind of coming back here into the earlier stuff, I mean, a lot of what Varlamore has to offer isn't necessarily in-game, so I do think it's going to function better as an earlier pick. Whether that be your first or your second region, I think it's going to function really well as a first region pick, but it's still going to be good as like a second region pick. It becomes a little bit weaker, I think, if you're taking this as your last region. But again, one of the big selling points is the fact that it's just going to set you up really well, just all around, all your gear. It's got a lot of skilling options. So I think we're going to see quite a few of these early type tasks. Not that there aren't going to be some late game tasks, because, you know, we do have the Coliseum and Vardorvis in here, which is going to be later game content, but a lot of that is going to be focused on like early and mid game. So in terms of those tasks, I really think Varlamore is going to be a strong option for your first region pick. But that is all I've got for you. Subscribe if you want to see more Leagues content. I am going to be making some more Leagues videos, as well as covering any of the sort of like information leaks as they come out, echo bosses, things like that. I've got the Discord linked in the description down below if you want to join that. And I am going to be streaming the start of the League. The League is going to kick off on November 27th. I'm going to start a little bit early in the morning. We don't quite know what the start time is, but I'm going to be online at 9 a.m. Central, talk some League strats, different area combos, things like that. And then whenever the game mode kicks off, we'll just switch on over to that. So thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.